everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your sun in Cancer and Aries rising. Both of these signs are cardinal and they clash with one another and form a square. Now this is not going to occur for every single sun ascendant combination. You would have to check your chart to see if this is happening, and I recommend astro.com. That's what I use for professional readings because it gives that chart, and there's some, there's different schools of thought about the orb of influence, and I just would rather let somebody else do the heavy lifting in that regard. Because to tell you the truth, I really don't care about whether two planets or 2 points officially square off. If you look at the signs that are involved, you can see where the conflict is going to be regardless. It's not to say that if your sun and rising sign with these two signs that are involved don't make contact with one another, that everything is easy peasy. No. But it is interesting that that is what can happen. But actually, you might have a trine that's out of sign because, for instance, if your sun sign is at a late degree of Cancer and your ascendant is at an early degree of Aries, this would form a trine, and that would be considered a friendly angle, actually a very harmonious angle. I don't think it would be the same if they were both in the same element. I think there would be a little weirdness there, but I mean, it does make that kind of aspect. Now, let's just talk about when you have in harmonious angles from the sun to the ascendant, what can that mean? I'm trying to remember if I've done this video yet for YouTube. I'm talking about just because I've done aspect videos, and I'm not sure if I've done this particular combination, but I think I have. I'm pretty sure I have. So your sun is your aspirational self, and we can look at that as how you came here to shine your light. But the thing is, you grow into yourself, just like we would say somebody who's a child grows into being an adult, and it's a process. It's not like, I mean, there are a few people who are very driven from an early age, even beyond the influence of parents pushing them, and they just have a very clear trajectory towards a certain goal from the time they're very, very young. An example I would give is Elton John, who sat in front of a piano when he was like 4 years old, and he was probably, you could call him like a prodigy, who was able to kind of pick out songs, melodies from an early age. And then, his mother saw that he had talent and gave him lessons, So there are those types of people out there, but in general, it's something that we kind of discover along the way. And it's not to say that in a lot of cases, if what we're really passionate about is not considered, if it's off the beaten path, people might even discourage us, well-meaning people that are close to us. So it's not that easy to follow who you came here to be, which is the sun. Now, the rising sign for me, is more of the coping mechanism that you adopted in order to fit in with your family of origin. That's my theory on it, especially if it is forming a tense angle with the sun, because it means that there's something about that family that is different from what you are all about. And you can also see, I feel like you can see how the family kind of operated, and you were part of that. Now, when we look at something like Cancer, which is a water sign, and Aries as the ascendant, these are very, very different types of energies. The one thing I would say that they have in common is that they're both emotional. But with Cancer, it's very much connected to your personal experiences, your childhood, your memories, those sorts of things. With the fire signs, it's yang or masculine, so it's very much about the idea of something. So it's more universal. And that's not to say that somebody who has a fire sign, a prominent fire sign, doesn't have emotional reactions that are specific to them and their past, but it's just not the way that the person is oriented in general. So they're going to be more universal with the things that they express emotion about. And it's just like men versus women. There's always like this joke, and it might be different for the younger generations, which are embodying more of their opposites qualities. So you see more women kind of embracing the masculine sign and more men with the feminine. But in the older generations, it can certainly be a situation where people are kind of playing out their gender conditioning. So for women, we tend to be more comfortable expressing emotion. I'm talking about those of us of older generations, and the men are less so. But they can brush things off more easily, like if they have buddies and somebody acts like a douchebag, they might be like, well, that's just how so and so acts. And they're not like, they don't take it personally, and they can even joke about it. Whereas a woman, if she had a girlfriend that was acting up, it might be a big deal. Women tend to be more critical of that kind of bad behavior, and they might be more inclined to talk about it with other friends and complain about it. So anyway, with this combination, this is going to make the person emotional in their personality. So it's a combination of being like maybe very reactive, because your rising sign, since it's the cusp of the first house, it's what people see up front and center. And you could just, the first house is the body. So it's like if you walk down the street, nobody's ever met you before, and you're a woman and you're dressed very provocatively, and you are barely dressed and you're almost naked, and there are men looking at you and maybe even trying to hit on you, and then you get incensed and you say, I'm married, and you're trying to say, how dare you even, talk to me. It's really, it's not to say that it's okay for somebody to, make lewd comments or anything like that, but you're going to draw attention to yourself. That's just reality. At the very least, you might have people looking at you, and if you don't like people looking at you, then you have to change the way that you carry yourself and what you're wearing, because it's just what they see. They don't know other things about you. And the thing that is, I think that's a difficult thing for people to understand, because a lot of times they're living in their own skin, so they're thinking that, oh, well, they should know that I have intelligence. They should know that I'm this. And yet, how can that happen? How can somebody know when they first meet you, everything that you are? So this is one of the reasons why it can be problematic, especially if you do officially have that square, where there's some way that you want to be seen, but it clashes with how you are seen. And this, this also can manifest with the moon too. So look at where your moon is, like what sign it's in, because I have also seen when the moon forms a square with the ascendant that there's something about the way that the person, their emotional nature, which kind of doesn't help them when it comes to their image. So, how does somebody with Aries rising behave? And what is the image that you create with your behavior? First of all, Aries, as I stated, is a fire sign, but it's also ruled by Mars, which is the god of war. So you can imagine the fiery nature, the combative nature sometimes. That would be more of the lower expression of Aries. It's not going to be across the board, but there's a sense of urgency with Mars and with Aries. You're probably, like if I was just thinking about the sign of Cancer, I think Cancer people, they're definitely active because they're cardinal signs, so they do take action. But I think that there's a little bit more um, ability to wait things out, a little bit more patience. And yet, with this rising sign, you may be quite impatient. There might be times when you just are so in motion. People see almost like I would say with people who have Aries rising that in some cases they may be ADHD, like they can't sit still. But I really hesitate to use a term like that because to pathologize people with a lot of energy is problematic. Yes, of course, there are going to be children that are so antsy that they just are, it's problematic. But, I feel like having energy is a good thing. And this is one of those signs that it's palpable. You can see that people with a prominent Aries, like the sun or the rising sign, that they are very energetic. So chances are you may even enjoy like athletics of some sort because you have that excess energy. It's a great place to channel that energy, actually. And in your dealings with others with whom you're not really that familiar, there can be a brusque quality, meaning that you may be very like short with your answers, like there's a terse kind of response. And one of the reasons for that is impatience, because people who talk in a long-winded way, like maybe me, I noticed that I've had a couple of people say that they put my videos on double speed or whatever, uh, because they want to, hear it quicker. So those kinds of things. You may like want people to cut to the chase, and because you're impatient to stand there and listen to them hem and haw about something, and you may just want to take action very, very often. Again, you have to look at other placements like Mars. Where is your Mars? With you have Cancer as a sun sign, the Mars sign might be fairly close to Cancer, and Aries is one of those signs that is fairly close to Cancer. So you might have Mars in Aries very easily. It's not tied to the rising sign, it's tied to the sun sign more than anything. So check that out to see what's going on. Because if your Mars is in Taurus, that's going to give you a little bit more patience and being slower moving when you do things. And that can actually be a great balance to this influence of being Aries ascendant. You may talk loudly. You may wear loud colors. It's funny that we use the word loud to describe colors. And usually I think that the connotation when somebody says loud is kind of tacky, kind of gaudy, meaning that it's uh, a little bit too bright, a little bit too show offy, that it makes it tacky. I'm not saying that you dress in a tacky way. I'm just saying that it's an interesting connection with the word loud. I don't think that Aries or Sagittarius are like Leo, especially in the ascendant position where they're looking for attention. I think with a sign like Aries, you're interested in being who you are. The first house rules the house of the self, and fire signs are very interested in being authentic and being their own people. That independence is so strong with the fire element. But I feel that sometimes it might be from childhood that you had to be a fighter for some reason. Now, remember what we're talking about with the sun sign. We're talking about Cancer. So it is possible that maybe you were a sensitive child and you were made fun of for that. Possibly a parent, maybe siblings, who knows. So you had to, in order to fit into that family, you had to have a tough guy act. And I'm talking about women too, or females too. So this is the poster child of the person who's putting on who has a tough exterior, but really is quite sensitive. And this can be something that you may not even be aware of when you're younger because you're so much in that mode. And who knows? Maybe you have to fight. Maybe you come from a rough neighborhood. I really don't like the idea of people thinking they have to physically fight. But this idea of you have to at least look like you're someone that can't be messed with because you don't want to get anybody trying to mess with you. And or there might be some other thing going on. Like I said, if you're being bullied at home or something, then you might feel like that part of yourself as a defense mechanism really comes out. And sometimes when somebody is being emotionally abused at home, and this can also apply to physical abuse too, they can become very, very sensitive to other people doing that to them as well. So an example would be somebody who is getting like hit at home and somebody by accident bumps into them and they assume that they're doing it on purpose and they're just ready to fight. So maybe when you were young, you were ready to fight, ready to kind of defend yourself. So there might be like a defensive quality. But there's also a very aggressive quality. Like I do feel that Cancer is a defensive sign, but it's defensive in terms of self-protectiveness, more on the emotional level than anything else. With Aries, it can be even on a physical level, like, don't invade my space, don't even think about threatening me. You may even be interested in boxing and that sort of thing. That would actually be a positive way of channeling any kind of aggression that you may have, is to make it a sport. Although I I don't know how, if people would find fault with me, but I don't know. It seems like boxing is pretty brutal. It's not something that I really consider a sport, but anything that you can do, but at least if it's something where it's fighting fair, then it might be different than what you have been exposed to, and it might be at least a way to channel that aggression. But there are other things that people can do that are very vigorous on a physical level and are ways of channeling excess energy and aggression. So you probably have a very competitive streak. I think as you get older that this will possibly dissipate, but not necessarily, because since this is a double cardinal placement, it might be that you are just that way. You're just very competitive, and that's just how it is. So, in some cases, that might be supported by your sun sign as well. Um, I think one of the biggest hurdles that you have to experience, because this could be a difficult combination in a certain way, is how do you accept that you are a sensitive person without feeling like it makes you too vulnerable? Because, especially for a man, there may be this tendency to put on a macho act, when in fact, being a sun in Cancer, you might be a homebody, you may love to cook, you may love to do things that we would associate with um, feminine, home activities, but you are a feminine sign, being a sun in Cancer. Now, how does a macho guy react to hearing that? He might feel like, what are you saying about me? But it's really important to balance those energies of male and female. I always talk about, masculine and feminine. I always talk about the divine masculine, that, that is very important, but it's the divine masculine, not toxic masculinity. And same with femininity for women. Somebody with this combination, you may be a tomboy when you are younger. You may, like to hang out with the boys too. And as you get older, you may start to embrace your femininity more. And by the way, when I say embrace your femininity, I don't mean that you have to wear dresses, and maybe you always will be more like that, at least how you present yourself. What I'm saying is that you are a feminine sign. So if you are a woman, being able to kind of like not reject that at the very least, I think is a good way to start balancing things. I could see this combination going into the military, both male and female, because Cancer rules the fourth house of home and family in astrology, and that can be patriotism, and you're ruled by Mars, the god of war. So that, and that can make you brave. So that could be one thing that you decide to do. There may be a push pull with this, where a part of you feels like you want freedom and a part of you wants very close ties in your intimate relationships, including family and friends. I mean, family especially, but also your significant other, your children. When I said family, I meant family of origin. I think this combination can have a big heart. I think that you can be very caring towards others. But I think that there might be, whenever Cancer is prominent, I think that moodiness can tend to be a thing. So you have to guard against that, because with being ruled by Mars, and Mars as a planet can indicate how you handle your anger, how you express your anger. So look to your natal Mars to see, how that comes out, because I really feel like Cancer can be a passive aggressive sign, even though there's an aggressive part of Cancer. There, to me, there's also, being a feminine sign, it can be passive. And let's say you have Mars and Gemini, for instance, you may find that your way of expressing displeasure or anger is through being sarcastic. And that kind of thing, the problem with that is that it's not clear communication. And it's not self empowered when people are being sarcastic. They're really just being indirect, and that doesn't solve anything. So, people who are mature, who want to deal with things head on, don't use kind of indirect speech to try to get their needs met. But anyway, what kind of professions would you go into? Well, I don't talk too much about the ascendant when it comes to professions. The only thing I would say is the military, because I said, that might be a very strong backbone. Maybe you even have relatives who have been in the military that you're kind of following suit. I think a lot of cancers, may have ability to be teachers, and that might be something that is very near and dear to your heart. Maybe with Aries rising, you'd be a gym teacher. Who knows? Something where you can be more. You can use that energy to your benefit. But there's a youthful quality when you have Aries rising. There's always this sense of you being in motion, and maybe having a lot of irons in the fire, and that's really good for becoming successful. When I say successful, I'm talking about the standard way of like making a nice living and being able to accomplish your goals. I'm not talking about it from a spiritual perspective. But in terms of love, I think that this combination is very romantic. Cancer is a sign that is sentimental. It's a water sign, so it's very sensitive to the other person. Um, Aries is a very ardent sort of a sign, so uh, I even somebody is a woman who is a Cancer, who typically might be more inclined to, um, let if she's interested in men, let the man chase her. You might be the chaser. And again, look at other placements like Venus. If your Venus is in Aries, then definitely you love the thrill of the chase. Could be something along those lines. So, yeah, checking that out. Okay, well, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.